Skyscrapers are towering symbols of human ambition. But sometimes ambition pushes the limits of reason. Imagine driving your car to the top of a 700-meter tall tower, or landing airplanes right in the middle of the Manhattan skyline. Or how about just building an entire skyscraper out of airplanes? My name is Torgeir, and I'm a senior structural engineer, and today I will explore some of the most absurd skyscraper concepts that never saw the light of day. The Boeing 737 MAX made headlines after its launch in 2016, when it was revealed that the aircraft's own internal software was causing the plane to malfunction and take a nosedive. This malfunction caused two 737 MAX planes to fatally crash, with passengers on board, putting the entire line of planes on the ground. Meanwhile, the world has a gigantic housing shortage, and many marginalized social groups are unable to find a place to live. Architects Vigo Hugo Azevedo and Shirley Luke Su proposed stacking the unused airplane cabins vertically to create a Jenga-like tower. The project was partly inspired by the trend of using decommissioned planes as cafes, restaurants, and even hotels, such as the famous 747 Jumbo Stay in Stockholm. Making residents out of planes would in a way make sense, because the cabins are already waterproof, as well as being insulated for both sound and temperature. The cabins were envisioned as modular housing units for war veterans with special needs. On-site amenities would include counseling rooms, therapy spaces, and fitness centers. One concept sketch included the idea of repurposing airplane wings as balconies, offering residents more outdoor space, giving the skyscraper an even more ludicrous look. While the idea was creative, it was maybe a little bit over the top to ever be taken seriously. And maybe Boeing had a saying in building a skyscraper to remind the world of their failure with the 737 MAX. In the 1930s, France was buzzing with optimism and innovation. This was the time of the Art Deco movement, a time when architects dared to dream big. One of the most ambitious ideas to emerge from this era was Faire du Monde, a 700-meter tall tower envisioned by French engineer Eugène Freycinet. This colossal structure was more than twice of the height of the Eiffel Tower and featured a spiraling ramp that would allow cars to drive all the way to the top. The tower's beacon would shine brightly enough to be seen from 200 kilometers away, earning it its poetic nickname Lighthouse of the World. This was the age of the skyscraper and automobile. At the time, cities were being redesigned for vehicular traffic, and cars symbolized freedom and progress. And what better way to showcase this than a tower where you could drive into the clouds? Engineers were also eager to show off the capability of the newly invented building material, reinforced concrete, a revolutionary material that was both strong and cost-effective. Remarkably, Freycinet estimated the cost of the tower to be less than half of that of the Eiffel Tower. But practicality was another matter entirely. Driving up the spiraling ramp at 20 km per hour would take an exhausting 18 minutes. For those unwilling to endure the dizzying ascent, stairs and elevators were also planned. And in case of a brake failure during the descent, rails would prevent cars from losing control of the edge. At the summit, the tower would feature parking for 400 vehicles, as well as luxury hotels and fine dining. It was a grand idea, but soon to be overshadowed and forgotten by the outbreak of the Second World War. The dynamic skyscraper, designed by Italian architect David Fisher, is one of the most futuristic skyscraper concepts ever proposed. This 80-story tower was envisioned as the world's first rotating skyscraper. Each floor would spin independently, creating a constantly shifting silhouette. The building's core, a fixed concrete cylinder, would house the elevator shafts and support the rotating floors. Prefabricated modules would form each level, significantly reducing on-site construction time. Residents could customize their modules, and large elevators would provide the possibility of driving your car into the apartment, in true Dubai style. A villa in the dynamic tower was expected to cost an incredible $28 million. and the rotating floors weren't just for aesthetics. They were marketed as a way for residents to enjoy the sunrise and sunset from the same room. But one of the big questions is, how do you provide electricity through cables to the apartments when they are constantly rotating? Apparently, the tower was designed to be self-sustaining, with integrated solar panels and horizontal wind turbines, generating renewable energy directly to the floors. While the concept is captivating, the technical challenges are immense. Moving parts in buildings are notoriously difficult to maintain. Sand and debris could clog the tracks, creating noise and wear over time. The core would need to withstand enormous force, especially if all the heaviest modules were aligned on one side. For now, the dynamic skyscraper remains a fascinating but unrealized vision. The Copenhagen Gate project envisioned two towers standing on opposite sides of a canal, connected by a 100-meter-long suspension bridge. The bridge, elevated 65 meters above the harbor, would surpass the height of the Brooklyn Bridge. It would provide clearance for cruise ships to pass underneath, making it a gateway to the city's docks. The bridge was designed to accommodate pedestrians and cyclists, with elevators in each tower allowing easy access. For bicyclists, it would reduce the current 2-kilometer detour to reach the Langlinje promenade. However, the engineering challenges were considerable. Traditional suspension bridges rely on anchoring their cables to the ground. Here, the towers themselves would bear the full weight of the bridge, a novel but risky approach. I'm not sure if any engineers have been involved in the project yet, but I decided to do some estimate calculations to give my take on it. For each tower, I'd suggest constructing massive concrete walls to anchor the bridge cables. These walls would counterbalance the forces acting on the structure, and my calculations shows that these walls could be made heavy enough to prevent tipping. Wind load on the bridge, however, presents a more complicated problem. A lightweight truss design could minimize the bridge mass, but it would need to be strong enough to withstand 100 meters of wind load. With this kind of span, the trusses would only have 1.6% of the capacity needed according to my calculations. My suggestion would be to add horizontal tension cables to the bridge. Alternatively, adding a third tower could create a T-shaped joint to counteract lateral forces. Despite its ingenuity, the Copenhagen Gate was never built due to financial constraints and concerns about its impact on the city's historic skyline. Building an airport on top of a skyscraper might sound far-fetched, but it is a concept architects and engineers have seriously explored. Did you know that there once was an idea of constructing a massive ring-shaped runway above the King's Cross in London? It was designed to meet the growing demands of aviation, with a circular runway that allowed aircrafts to land from any direction, adapting to changing wind conditions. The hangars for the planes would be stored conveniently beneath the runway. However, obvious safety concerns grounded the project before it ever took off. But this was not the only time an inner-city airport has been proposed for London. There was also a suggestion of building an airport above the River Thames. The design featured a colossal bridge-like structure between Westminster and Lambeth Bridge. The upper deck was designated for aircraft takeoffs and landings, with uninterrupted river traffic passing below. The project would have been a complete disaster, failing to account for the need for longer runways to accommodate the more advanced airplanes developed less than a decade later. I read all of your video comments, so please make sure to leave one below. Also, if you enjoy the content and the way I presented it, you should consider subscribing to my channel. Thank you for watching.